What's up, Edwin?
How are you?
I'm great. How's it going?
Can't believe I'm here.
You've been here before.
I have, but I'm just such a big fan. I'm having to contain myself a little bit.
It's funny. I was thinking about this today. That it's like Edwin's coming in, and Edwin's been here before, just hanging out. And so, do we pretend like this is a rare event or something, or do we just kind of have one of our conversations that we have?
I just think we continue to be friends like we've always been.
Yeah.
It's nice like that.
I was talking to somebody earlier today about you. One of my friends was bartended at the Tip Top in Augusta.
Squeaky's.
Is that what it is?
Squeaky's Tip Top.
Yeah. And he said that he met you there years ago and everything. He said you were incredibly cool. And I was thinking like, well, when would that have been? Must have been mid-90s? Early 90s?
90 or 91, right around there.
Okay, so what was going on then?
So
was this like regional touring?
No, I was so excited. That was like one of my first like out of town gigs.
Okay.
So I was playing in Hilton Head full time at Wild Wings, and I don't know how.
Wait, tell people what Wild Wings.
So
is.
Wild Wing Cafe is a chain of wing
places. Yeah.
And the first restaurant they ever had was in Hilton Head Island.
Okay.
And I started playing there when they just had one.
Mm-hmm.
And they expanded. Their success story began there along with mine. And I used to play probably three nights a week out on this. It had this deck right next to this little duck pond in Caligny Plaza, and it just sounded like $1 million on this little deck. And it was
And what are you playing then?
my home gig, just playing acoustic guitar, and I had a percussionist and a sax player.
Okay.
Craig, the same sax player
Yeah.
that's been with me this whole
Forever.
time. And this percussionist named Kay Smith. And the three of us used to just sit there and play our little gigs. And
would you do some originals, covers?
So I played mostly originals, and then I played some Jimi Hendrix, Seal, Jane's Addiction, Blues Traveler, maybe some Widespread Panic, but like I didn't know how to play the Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, right? Some of those like acoustic guitar player guy songs, they just had too many chords and too many words, and so I just played the songs. I played this.
Gordon Lightfoot had a lot of words.
But yeah, it was a lot
Great
of words. A lot of worms, Roxanne.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, it was mostly my stuff. And honestly, one of the things that drove me to writing music was because a lot of the stuff that I wanted to learn how to play, it was too hard. And back then, you couldn't go on YouTube and have some patient person carefully show you how to do a reasonable facsimile of some song you wanted to learn. You had to go buy a song book.
Yeah, which had the wrong chords.
And they always had the wrong tabs in them.
Yeah.
And you just go, all right, forget this. And so what I ended up doing was just working on hybrids of songs I loved. And so once I could get it to where I could sing and play along with it, like it didn't matter to me whether or not I was playing all the exact right chords. Plus, when I started, I was playing a 12-string, and so I couldn't bar the 12-string all the time. So I would chronically leave the B and E string open.
Right.
And so
just because it's too hard to press down.
It's just too hard to press down on it. So it was just like a lazy thing. But for a long time, so that became kind of a feature of the way I play even now. I was just I just like the way that sounds.
Yeah.
So, I mean.
So Hilton Head, but you were living in Greenville.
So I was living in Hilton Head. So I was living in Hilton Head.
Okay.
And so I get this gig at Squeaky's Tip Top, which is, and to be fair, I mean, I have a watercolor painting in a frame in my house of Squeaky's Tip Top.
Wow.
Because it was kind of a legendary spot in Augusta.
Yeah.
And so the floor was practically dirt because it had been worn down so bad. And so I would go up and play at Squeaky's. But one of the reasons I went to play there was because there was this guy named Steve Mitchell who was a prodigy guitar player, and he played upside down and backwards.
Okay.
But he he was really agoraphobic. And so it was real hard to talk him into playing a gig. And especially, I was 20, but he would come and play. And I mean, for me, just to be around musicianship like that was really cool, right? Like this guy's playing music with me. It's not only just a gig for me, but I'm front row with this amazing guitar player. So that kind of started that.
Now, did you make it down to Atlanta? Like, how did you kind of build your circle of gigs?
So I started out playing
because I know that you used to play Atlanta,
right? So I started playing the Wild Wings. So wherever they would open a Wild Wings, I would go just live in that town and play 3 nights a week and just kind of play wherever. But the inadvertent thing about being in Hilton Head for as long as I was is that the country came to me.
Right.
So when I would go and play in Atlanta, there had already been people in Atlanta that had been on vacation. So those people would come out and hear me.
Sure.
And I was dating a girl that was living here in Atlanta, and she lived near Chastain Park. And so she knew all the cool, she was super cool, and knew all the cool spots to go to. So we would go to Virginia Highlands, the Highland Tap, and see music there. And we would go to Blind Willie's and see music there. And we went and saw, what's the theater in Little Five Points?
Variety Playhouse.
The Variety Playhouse. Yeah, yep. We saw Sean Colvin there. And, and she lived near Chastain Park, and I used to run around Chastain Park and look over the fence and be like, man, wouldn't that be cool? Like one day. And so that was kind of part of the 10,000 hours. Cause I was playing back then, I was playing 10 shows a week that were 4 hours long a piece. And I was doing,
that's like the journeyman thing. When I first moved to Atlanta in 94, there was a lot of people that this was a thing. And to be able to play for 4 hours, you had to have incredible endurance with your voice and play multiple nights a week. But you got an incredibly strong voice from that. Is that correct?
I did. I built it up. I had a tour manager one time. He called it. He said, "Your voice, your vocal cords must be Teflon coated titanium." Because it's unbelievable. Because I was screaming a lot too. It was a lot of loud, and. Yeah, so youth is amazing. It was, and not knowing any better, because even back in the Hilton Head days, it didn't occur to me that you probably shouldn't play 10 shows a week, 3 on Saturdays. And I had a couple of the older guys, when I say older guys, the guys in their 30s.
Right.
This guy named Dave Kimberly, sat me down. I was like, you really shouldn't be playing this many gigs. And I was like, why? I was like, it's amazing. They're paying me to play music. I couldn't believe my good fortune to be 20 and 21 years old and play in that many shows a week. And it just forced, especially on a deck in a resort town when people are definitely not there to hear you. And if you can figure out a way to entertain those people,
right,
you can entertain anyone.
Yes.
And what I discovered was you don't engage them. You don't try to do the, hey, where are you from kind of thing. You know what you do? You just start playing with wild abandon. I literally just sat up there and played just my heart out every night, just personally just enjoying the playing, and it sort of drew people in. And so very shortly after that, the deck at Wild Wings was packed all the time.
How many people would be there?
A couple of hundred every time we played. And that was as much as that little deck could hold. And, the turnover for the tables, because they had cheap beer and there was turnover, and, it was packed. It was packed. And it was funny because I remember that was the first time there was another bar across town in Hilton Head that wanted me to play for them. And of course I told them no, because I was loyal to Cecil and Diane, who owned Wild Wings. And the dude threatened to break my fingers. And I remember, instead of feeling threatened by it, I was so proud of the fact that all of a sudden, like, I was worth having broken fingers over. I was like, man, I'm really doing something. I've already been threatened. So I was too stupid to know that the guy was probably pretty serious about it. But I mean, you know.
Edwin, so how do you go from that to getting your record deal? And so did you keep drawing more and more people? Were you playing Georgia Theater in Athens? Did you play stuff like that? What did you do? What other places?
So the thing was, there was one club in Hilton Head called the Old Post Office.
Okay.
And all the touring acts were coming through there. And it was a straight up old school rock club. And so all the bands came through there, like All Good Music Company, Blues Traveler, Widespread Panic, Gib Droll, Hootie and the Blowfish, Dave Matthews, everybody who was like, there was a band called Egypt, who the Aquarium Rescue Unit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, so all these bands were coming through. And so I was front and center, like, you know, starry-eyed, like, wow. You know, meanwhile, probably making twice as much money as they were.
Right.
I mean, like, really, truly making a really great living over there down at my little deck. But stars in my eyes, just to be in a band that toured up and down the East Coast. Like, that to me, and again, at that time, the best any Southern band could hope for was maybe getting in the bar circuit and traveling around the South. We were almost wholly ignored as far as the larger industry is concerned. Right. And so I'm in there watching some of the greatest musicians. Like, that band Egypt was astonishingly great. They were the Chili Peppers before the Chili Peppers, except for it was more technically savvy. The guitar player was a guy named Joe Lawler, who was one of those shredder guys where you just sit there and go, how did he just do what he just did? And then it's also semi-improvisational. And then the Aquarium Rescue Unit showed up. And I remember, because my friends were in this band called Uncle Mingo, who I idolized.
Yeah.
I idolize.
Yeah.
I still do. I love Uncle Mingo. My friend Jason and I were in a high school band together in Greenville. So he's in Uncle Mingo, and so I idolize this band. And then the Aquarium Rescue Unit showed up to open for them. And so halfway into that gig, I turned to Jason. I was like, I can't believe you have to go on after this. Because it was insanity, like the level of musicianship that was occurring improvisationally. So at that time, the Hootie thing was starting to go, the Dave Matthews thing was starting to go, and it occurred to me, if you want this to happen, you need to leave your comfortable life, find a drummer and a bass player, and go out here and give it a shot. And so there was a band called the Truly Dangerous Swamp Band that broke up, and so I got the drummer and the bass player from that band to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
That worked out for a little bit, but then they were grown-ups and they had the grown-up lives, and they weren't just going to ride around with me playing fraternity gigs. So Craig, the sax player, knew a drummer named Todd, and we had a couple of different bass players, and then we ended up with this guy in Charleston named Scott Benevich, who had been in a band called Passenger. He was like a big heavy metal guy, unbelievable bass player. Like, he looked almost exactly like Sebastian Bach in his early days, like really good looking guy. So that kind of rounded out this band. All of a sudden we got this band, this crew, and we just started doing what everybody did at the time, which was play the fraternity and sorority houses until you...
And where? What schools?
So Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, the triangle was the honey hole.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have far to drive.
Yeah.
So we would sit in the triangle and play in the triangle and then go up to Virginia.
Okay, wait, how much would these gigs pay back then?
$750.
Okay.
And so we had our own PA.
Yeah.
So I cobbled together some SP4s and some JBL subs and an old English console that was backwards 29-1. I want to say it was an
And
Allen.
you guys are traveling with us in a trailer.
In a U-Haul truck.
Yeah, okay.
So I decided our best case was to get a U-Haul truck, build a wall halfway back. The back half had the gear. The front half had us.
Yeah.
and then the cab, 2 people, and it was like a clown car. When we got places, like all of us piling out of the front cab of this thing, it was ridiculous. And
Not very safe.
No,
probably, either.
terrible. And I remember I had built this little cubby hole bunk sort of thing in the back of the deal, and I used to sleep so good in this stupid truck, like just bouncing down the road. And I used to think it was like, I was like, I sleep so good in this truck because I was made for this, right? I used to tell myself, I was like, man, this is proof that I'm made for this. Well, it turns out my bunk was right over the exhaust pipe.
Oh my God.
So probably just, monoxide.
Like on the edge of death.
Monoxide-induced sleep. Anyway, so we made the circles in the fraternities, and then we would make enough money to go to Texas and play a gig.
But who would get those gigs? Would you book them?
Yeah. And so the way I did it.
How do you even do it? There's this pre-cell phone and everything. How do you get in touch with people there?
I just badgered people to death. I literally would call every day, sometimes twice a day, until I got in touch with the manager or whoever was going to do, and I would just introduce myself, explain the situation, and just beg them for a date. And then and
like
really
any day of the week, right?
Which is how that was how I got all my gigs. Like I remember the first gig I got at the Windjammer, I finally badgered Bobby into giving me a gig. He was like, fine, you can play Saturday from 12 to 4, but you have to bring your own PA and you can set up on the stage. And I was like, whatever, fine. And so I sat on the stage while the people at the bar with their backs to me, and I played my little songs, and I was just like so excited I had my gig. And so it was kind of I always looked at it like I'm walking around with no.
Mm-hmm.
I got a whole truckload of no. So the only thing that can happen is you're going to either say maybe or yes. And I'm just going to call you so much and be nice and respectful, and also tell you that I'm going to call back every day until you say yes, please, sir. And eventually they just be like, all right, you know what?
Right.
Just let this kid, just fine. Just come.
Give him a gig.
Perfect example. So one of the biggest clubs you could get was Ziggy's in Winston-Salem.
Oh, yeah.
And if you got to Ziggy's, the entire East Coast would open up for you, because all the people that booked up from New York down watched what Jay Stevens was doing. And so I started calling Jay Stevens, just badgering him. And but that time we had started opening for Hootie. And
so what year would this have been then?
92, 93,
okay.
92-ish, 93. And we were playing fraternities. And
how big was Hootie at the time?
Big. Like they was selling out every club they played.
How big are clubs?
500s. They were 1,000.
Okay.
Like they were selling out the Bayou.
Yeah.
But we were all still doing fraternity shows too.
Yeah.
So I mean, I remember I finally got Jay Stevens. Jay Stevens, the trial by fire with Jay was you would have to go play Christmas Day at Ziggy's. If you really want to play here, kid, you got to play here on Christmas Day. And it was an outside gig.
Right.
The place was covered by a tent, and they had heaters hanging from the ceiling, but when it was 20 degrees, but we were like, okay, fine, whatever, we'll do it. And we went up there and played Christmas Day, and then after that we started getting Thursdays, and then we finally got a Friday, and after that, and it was just chipping away at it, right? But all that to say, Dave Matthews and Hootie were the vanguard.
Now Dave was signed at that point, right?
No, so Dave.
When did Dave get signed?
So Dave 94.
94.
So Dave, very smartly, he was playing the Flood Zone in Richmond, and Corin Capshaw owned the Flood Zone.
Right.
And so Corin saw what was building around Dave, and obviously the musicianship in his band is unimpeachable. And Corin smartly was like, well, I'm gonna manage you now. And
still does, right?
It still does.
Yeah.
And me now.
Yeah.
Strangely. I mean, they were blowing up. The Hootie thing was blowing up, and we were opening a lot for Hootie at the time. They were so cool with me. And the Atlantic people showed up hardcore chasing Hootie. And a guy named Danny Bush. And we were all out. We were actually we were in little 5 point, or no, Virginia Highland Tap. We were in the Highland Tap.
Okay.
I'll never forget it. And the Hootie guys were sitting there with Danny Bush, and they were like, come over here. And so I went and met him, and they were like, you need to sign him too. Hey, we're signing with Atlantic. You should come. We should all be on the label together. And Danny was like, whatever. Bring the big head kid to, like, you know, they were smart. They know. They wanted Hootie. And who didn't? Because Dave had sold 10,000 CDs on his own, independent rock.
Yep.
And so did Hootie.
Yeah.
They were neck and neck, right?
Yeah.
And I was literally just in the wake of those two bands. And so Hootie went to Atlantic proper.
Yep.
And I went with Jason Flom to Lava. And if you know anything about Jason's story, he was sort of the black sheep.
Right.
Doug Morris told him, if you say the name Twisted Sister in this building again, I'm going to have you fired. And Jason said, whatever, and went and got Twisted Sister signed through the European version of Atlantic, got a hit with it, and they couldn't fire him because he was right. And so what they did was they put him in a different building and gave him his own imprint. And I met Jason. We were playing a gig in Vail, and he offered me a record deal, and we've been friends. I talked to him 2 days ago, right?
Jason is an old school record label guy, record label president, and I've been successful for 30 some odd years now.
He was a true acolyte of Ahmet Ertegun's.
Mm-hmm.
I think he really got, he was already a kindred spirit, but it was always about the song, right, with Jason. And I say this too, of all the people that I worked with in the industry, never lied to me, even when the news wasn't good. And that's kind of how I'll Be came about, because I was about to get dropped, and he called me on the phone. He used to call me Jethro. He goes, Jethro, I just left a department head meeting, and they're all talking about dropping you off the label. So whatever you turn in next needs to be great. And I was like, ooh, okay. Got this one song. I was, in my little apartment over off of Peachtree, sitting there on my green futon, scribbling away with all the fragments, And that was it, man.
Wait, so you signed to Lava?
Well, so yeah, so
Go back to
rewind
that.
a little bit. So I signed to Lava.
So Hootie signs to Atlantic proper. You signed to Lava, which is basically Atlantic.
Right, but Darius had said he loved this one song I had called Solitude, and it's a true story of a friend of mine that got put into a rehab in the 80s, which wasn't even a rehab. It was like a jail for teenagers. And so Darius always loved that song. And he said, listen, he told Atlantic, like, I'll sing on his single. And Atlantic's like, absolutely, we need to do that. And so, and Flom swears that, so my single came out with Darius singing on it, and there was a video on VH1, and Flom to this day swears that my single sold 10 million more Hootie records. But it was because of, basically the Hootie guys just carried me into the business with them, which is why I spend my whole life trying to pay them back. And I acknowledge what they did for me. And I think it's rare in an industry that's so competitive to have your friends really go to bat for you like they did for me. And then after Solitude, it was kind of like, all right, well, you got to sink or swim on your own. And that was sort of the next little phase, when, we had to, and our whole thing was just, man, we were just tour. Like, as soon as Atlantic gave us a tour support, we were gone. Like, they let us have a bus. I mean, even though the bus was like a 1971 Eagle, we didn't care. We loved it. We used to call it the Lake House. It was a bus.
Did you guys tow a trailer with it?
Yes, we did. We towed and listen, That bus was the oldest tour bus in existence, and it didn't matter. We loved it so much. It was such a piece of junk, and it broke down all the time. We didn't care. We were just so glad to be in a bus. And we would stay on the road. Like, I think at one point, once they had given us the bus, we were out there for like 16 months. And nobody knew where we were. Like, at some point, I think they were like, where is he? And we were just showing up at places going, is anybody playing here tonight? Because if they're not, we will.
Did you guys have an agent then?
Well, we did, but we didn't want to, I didn't want to turn the bus in because then we wouldn't get it back.
Right.
And I was like, all right, we can't let this bus go.
So we just got to keep touring.
Yes, yeah. So we were just staying out there, and we would play anywhere and everywhere. Like, I remember one time we played a gig here in Atlanta at one of the colleges, and then they had another gig booked that night somewhere else, and we put all our gear on MARTA and rode MARTA to the airport to fly out because that was the only way to do it. I mean, we did ridiculous stuff. Like, I think back to those days. We were playing 200 plus, 250 maybe, a lot.
Gigs in a year.
A year, yeah, easily 250 in a year. And in anywhere and everywhere, it didn't matter to me because my feeling was the more I played, the more people we could get in front of, the better it would be in the long run. And hopefully we could stay around.
Okay, so Jason calls you and said, okay, you guys are going to get dropped unless you have a hit, basically.
Right.
And how do you react to that?
So I had this song sort of 80% done, and I pulled out all the little pieces of paper. I used to write stuff down on napkins and fragments and just throw them in my bag and then get home and dump it all out and just sort of look at all the things that I'd written and piece it all together. And so I put the song together, and I remember sitting there playing it. I was like, man, this feels good. This feels like it might be something. And the songs that have really connected, I always seem to get real emotional while I'm writing them. Mm-hmm. Like, I used to tell people, like if I can get snotty-nosed about it, it might have a chance. And so the first time I played it for a crowd, I think all I said was, this is a new song, and played it. And you know, when you say that to an audience, this is a new song, they all turn and go to get a beer, right? Like, that's the first thing they did. But they didn't. And it was like an instant reaction. I was like, man, this is definitely something. We did one recording of it in Nashville with Kenny Greenberg and Matt.
Matt Serletic?
No, not Serletic. I'm losing my mind. Piano player. Anyway, I'll think of it in a second. And it was cool. It was like what we love about music. Like, you could hear the spit in the saxophone, like just real live and in your face. Like, and the record company hated it. They're like, what is that static in the beginning of the song? I'm like, that's not static. That's spit from the saxophone reed. And then I realized, like, I was like,
you have to explain, Edwin.
But you understand, like, like we are trying to live in the music, what's cool musically. They're trying to sell widgets.
Right.
So then we re-recorded it.
Did they say, Matt Serletic, or we want you to work with him?
So we had to re-record it and make it big.
And where did you do that?
Tree.
At Tree here in Atlanta.
Yeah. So now we have a really good, big version of the song, like big sounding. And Atlantic, when there's so much to the story. So I already knew that we were in deep trouble because I had gotten the secret code to the Thursday morning conference call, and I would secretly listen in. I would listen in, and they wouldn't even talk about us at all. Like, they would talk about every other act on the label. And so I went to my manager at the time.
Were you thinking, like, when are they gonna?
No, and at that point I was like, we are dead. Yeah. And so what we had to do was look at the release calendar on Atlantic and go, okay, where in this calendar is there nothing happening? Like, we got to find a hole in the calendar to where there's literally no other thing for them to do but help us in this little window. So we found the little window. And so they reluctantly put it on 3 stations. It was Huntsville, Alabama, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and I want to say Birmingham.
Okay.
Right? And because they assume, like, well, those will be good test markets. And so I got every friend I knew in those 3 cities to go to the record stores
and buy them
and send them to us and change their clothes and go in and buy more and ask questions and call radio stations. Just absolutely. I called my manager at the time. I was like, Rich, how much money do you have? Because we're going to leave it all out on the field. Like,
this is so old school.
I was like, this is our last chance. Like, so if we don't throw everything we have at this, we're dead. And it's not sustainable, but if we can just get a spark to happen, right? And
just so they start playing it more.
Yes. And so we had this 3-ring circus of people buying our records and sending them to us, and then we would sell them again at the show, but it would double the SoundScan number because it was the same UPC code.
That's right.
So in the middle of this caper, I was home on a break, and Jason calls me and he goes, Jethro, you better not have your cousins buying records down in Alabama. And I was like,
what are you talking about?
I don't have any cousins in Atlanta, and so we got what they were looking for is a spin to sale ratio.
Yeah.
If you get spins, you get sales.
Even if it's small amounts.
If they up the spins, the sales go up.
Yep.
So we knew that was the first lock to unlock. And so we got that one, we got them to pay attention. And then they said, all right, well, we'll put that song in a TV show. Mm-hmm. So they went out there and they found some placement in this little show called Dawson's Creek.
Yep.
And they put it in the final scene of the end of the season. I'd never seen this show in my life. They put it in the final scene, in the final episode, and the sales went from 2,000 a week, which we were responsible for, to 20,000 a week.
Wow.
Which was the ignition, right? The absolute moment. And I remember distinctly when that happened, because Flom and I were in New York, and he goes, well, you've officially made it. And he really shows me the sales report, and I was like, oh, now we're on to something. And then it started. It still didn't really blow up. It just started this slow grind upwards that's still going now. Like almost 30 years later, is still just
okay. So
there.
I'm going to play it here.
In your eyes, the color them wonderful, stop me and steal my breath. And emeralds from mountains and thrust towards the sky, never revealing their depth. And tell me that we belong together, dress it out with the trappings of love. I'll be captivated. I'll hang from your lips instead of the gallows of heartache that hang from above. And I'll be your crying shoulder. I'll be love suicide.
So, Edwin, this song has a perfect melody. When I heard it, I was like, wow. Not only does it have a perfect melody, your vocal performance is phenomenal.
I remember walking in that booth, just thinking, this is it, right?
Did Matt Swletic realize this was a huge hit?
I don't know. He plays it pretty close to the vest, and he's also he's so talented anyway.
Yeah.
So he's around talent. Like I think he expected it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
he would say he expects that out of you.
Yeah.
And I mean he's not wrong. Like all the people that he's worked with, like he expects people to be great.
The vocal sound is phenomenal. Like everything about it. Do you remember what you sang through?
I want to say
Like a U47 or something like that?
It might have been a U47 or a C12.
Were you in the A room at Tree?
Yeah, it was either one of the. It was either a U47 or a C12, like one of the. I have a weird.
So just so people know this, so I had a room at Tree for years. I worked there millions of times. Tree Sound here in Atlanta. Worked in the A room many times. I can see it. It's burned into my brain. And so when you tell me about this, it's, it's like, yeah, I've been in there a million times.
I have a problem. Well, one of the things about my voice, I have this weird bell tone that if you don't deal with it, it's one of those fingernails on a chalkboard thing that
like a knife.
Yeah, and so typically Neumann doesn't really work for me.
Did you guys try a bunch of mics?
Yeah, not really. I mean, I just remember singing.
Work.
Yeah, I remember singing. I didn't do a lot of takes because, and you get this funny because when I hear it like that, I can see that kid in there like just trying as hard as I could.
Right.
I mean, literally, it's almost so. A lot of times too, when I hear back to these songs, there's not a lot of subtlety going on because I'm literally just going as hard as I can because I thought you think that translates because of how you feel inside.
Yeah. And
then over time, you start to understand how important sometimes a whisper can be. But at that time, I was just all, like I'm going to overact. I'm going to oversing and overact and try too hard. And mercifully, it worked perfectly for that song. Yeah.
The arrangement of it, everything like that, was this exactly how you did it live?
Yeah, that was it.
And at the time, would you just go in and do the basic rhythm tracks and then just sing over it?
So we would just play it down as a band, and then probably do some guitar overdubs and any kind of bass fixes or anything like that, and then get as much of a track together as we could, and then I'd go in and sing.
Okay, so you sell 20,000 records that 1 week, and then what do the numbers start looking like after that?
It just started to grow, and then obviously we had to run to New York and do a video and do some incredibly dangerous stuff. Like I was hanging off the side of a building. There was no safety people or harnesses or any, And just recently we figured out who the girl in the video is.
Okay.
Like, so people would ask me like, who's the girl? I don't know. some model they hired. And that's what's funny about social media. They would be like, how do you not know who it was? I was like, we never met her.
Sure.
I was in a scene with her, but I think short of hello, that was it, right? And then of course the internet's amazing because people in the comment sections are like went straight down the wormhole and was like, is this her? Yep, that's her.
Oh my God, amazing.
And but also shooting a video was a $200,000 event. And part of shooting a video, because there was a pipeline of movie directors, of up and coming movie directors that were camped out in music video world. And that was sort of like the farm team for the movie industry.
Yes.
And so that's why if you go back and look at some of the videos in the 90s, like the creativity's all over the place. And I think like with the exception of like bands like Billy Corrigan was, hatching his own ideas and being really creative on his own.
Yeah.
Like most of the bands are just like,
They just
tell us where we're supposed to
That's
be,
right.
and the director would come up with this concept and the locations, and then the vision of it would really be theirs, which I was fine with because I was trying to get ads at the stations, and my real strong suit was going to radio and getting
Okay,
ads.
talk about getting ads, what that even means, because people nowadays don't even. This is like
So yeah,
not even a
this is
thing now, right?
So every radio station had it, and this is before before they had all basically become one company.
Yes, before
So all over the country,
before all the consolidations,
there were these little conglomerates of radio stations, like 10 stations or 20 stations, and owned by different people. And these program directors for each station, the program director set the playlist
That's right.
that he was going to play. Now they consulted with some people, but each station was kind of its own island. So you had to get to this program director and get them to play your song. And so starting when I first got signed with Atlantic and they explained to me the process, I was like, oh, so basically I just have to call these guys the same way I used to call the club managers. And so I had a spiral notebook, and every day at 8 o'clock in the morning, I would just start calling radio station. I had a list of all the stations that we could potentially get on. And back then it was AAA or sometimes
AAA was the format.
AAA was the format.
Yeah.
And maybe some of the rock stations. But I just start calling these guys. And I had a list in my little notebook of if I got in touch with them, what we talked about, am I getting close to the yes or the no, whatever. And so, and I was on the phone from 8 o'clock until 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Edwin, they normally would have people at the record labels that would do this.
Yes, and that worked in my favor because these program directors would be like, what, the kid is calling? The actual artist? And they would pick up the phone out of curiosity and then tell me no.
Right.
But still, I developed these relationships. And so over time, like I got a real kick out of getting ads to the point where Atlantic had me working other people's records.
Because you had the relationships.
Because I had the relationships. And
getting ads, once again, though, is getting added to the playlist.
Getting added to the playlist. And me and Bernadette Powers had such a good relationship with this guy named Dan Kiley. He became the program director for Star 94 in LA. And Dan would only talk to me or Bernadette.
Oh my God.
And so Atlantic was like, you got to go talk to Dan. And so I was...
To help their other artists, right?
And at the time, too, I was just trying to find any way to ingratiate myself with the people at Atlantic because they didn't really want me, right? Like I knew I was on the way out. So I was like that weird girlfriend that left all her stuff at your apartment so she'd have a reason to come back. You know what I mean? Like I was just doing anything I could do to stay. And I always look at that time. Like there's this apocryphal story about Harlan Howard in Nashville sitting at a bar. He's this old school producer. He's been there for 50 years. And this kid sidles up next to him at the bar. He's bitching about, I've been here 6 months. I can't get everything happening. And Harlan turns to him and goes, nobody sent for you. And I always looked at it like that, like nobody sent for me. So if I want to stay here, I got to be creative so switch back to now we're actually a viable thing, and Atlantic turned on the machine.
Yeah.
And when they turn on the juice, like they turn on the faucet, and now you've got the entire company and all the department heads working on and it's.
Did you call into the phone call to the meetings then?
No, I think they figured out what I was doing by then. And
so once they turn on the juice there, what happens?
You go to Letterman and Leno,
yeah,
and all the talk shows and in Good Morning America, and I'm singing the anthem at the Daytona 500, and you're just shot out of the rocket, mm-hmm. and you're playing, and all the shows are sold out, and I'm getting, for about a decade, I got about 4 hours of sleep a night. you get up at 6 to go to the morning show, and you do 3 morning shows.
Tell people about this. You have a gig at night.
You have a gig at night.
You go to bed at what time?
Yeah, if you're lucky, you're on the bus call is 2 a.m. You're on the road to the next place. You get there around 6 a.m., 7. You got to get up, go to the first morning radio show, do radio shows.
Many times you're playing. Almost all the times you're playing.
You're playing, and you're absolutely playing.
After having 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah, and then you go to the record store, and you do the in-store at the record store, and then you go to the sound check meet and greet, and then you play the show and
do it again.
Go do it all over again. And that was from 25 to 35, and it's just as hard and as fast as you can go, and you don't know to advocate for yourself at all. And my mindset was, man, my drummer has kids. Like, I need to do everything possible to be able to keep this going as hard as I can do it. Enter cocaine to get up in the morning, and that's the first crack in the fault line, right? And then finish the show and start. I never drank during the day or anything like that, but then you finish the show and you go, okay, well, how am I going to wind down enough to actually get any sleep? Well, you just pour booze on yourself until you fall asleep, which that isn't really good sleep. Or you're with people and they've been so excited to see you, and you only come once a year, so you can't let them down. So you go out with people and you put together a decade of big nights out. It's their one big night out for the year, but you put
every night is a night out for you.
And so it was really easy for me to slip into substance use disorder and not even notice, because I had some rules in place. Like, I was on for the show. I wasn't falling down, or I was, in my mind, I was fine. Like, I was totally high functioning, And plus, everybody, if you live in a bar every night and you live around people in bars and everybody drinks and everybody does blow, like, it doesn't feel like I'm not doing anything weird. I'm not shooting heroin. I would say to myself, I'm not like those guys. You know what I mean? Like, it's so funny looking back on it now.
It seems so absurd.
It's absurd.
Now your kids, they know about all this.
They know
right?
about all this.
And what do they say?
Well, their generation is so different because they have such a better understanding of mental health issues and the impact that drugs and alcohol have. And they're way more emotionally intelligent than we were. So I don't think it's as big a mystery. I think my middle son,
Wait, how old are your kids?
I have 19. They're 7 months apart. My oldest is adopted, my middle son, and then my daughter's 16. And so my middle son has expressed a little bit of frustration that he doesn't get to party because I've told him too much of the danger of it. Like, he's a little frustrated, and I on one hand I kind of understand it, but on the other hand I'm like, you're dodging a bullet here. It's just, there's just no good to the end of that story. It's real hard to get off the ride, and so they get it, they understand, but their generation is so much better than we were. I think the first time I ever drank, I was 13.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I ever did drugs, I was 15, right? Like, it's crazy to think that now. Like, you would introduce those chemicals into your brain at that tender age where it really affects future decision making,
But kids had so much freedom to do anything. This is the thing, right? We were talking about this earlier.
We were unsupervised.
Unsupervised. Now, there's got to be something to that, having that unsupervised time was really important
And
to
I was
creating art.
I was dyslexic as a kid, so I had a really hard time in grammar school, and I couldn't read, and so, but I could sing, and everybody seemed to like it when I was singing. So that was automatically where we were going. Like the adults don't like it when I'm trying to do math. Yeah, so let's just sing and everything I can possibly get my hands on. So that was kind of the beginnings of it, is the path of least resistance. But I think also the way that we grew up, we also had to sort out all of our own problems. We had to sort out our interpersonal problems. We had to sort out our relationship with gravity.
Yes.
We all learned the hard way.
That's right.
And because of that, we, for good or bad, they created a generation of people who can't be told. We've been teaching ourselves, so it's really hard for me to accept someone's opinion about something. Well, I hear what you're saying, but I'm going to go test your theory, and I'll be back. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It really is that. So, and it also, we needed novelty in all aspects of our lives, and we wandered around seeking it, which is why being in a band on the road playing gigs was the perfect answer.
Okay, so after this first record, you made the next record, what, 97?
So 96 we were making it.
96.
It came out in 97.
Okay, so there's no internet really. Nobody had websites or anything. This is still pre that.
And Atlantic didn't know what to make of us.
Right.
Because if you listen to our records, they're all over the place.
Yeah.
There's Latin influenced stuff. There's jazz influenced stuff. There's rock. There's, singer-songwriter stuff. And so the record company didn't know what to do with this. And like, how do you promote this? And our shows were 2 hours long. I mean, they used to criticize me for that. And my take was, these people paid money to see us.
That's like old school bar mentality, right?
I'm going to give them everything I can give them.
That's your Wild Wing.
Right. And 2 hours is half of what I used to do, right? So it was that. And then also we had kind of come up, we were on tour with Bob Weir.
Right.
And the Allman Brothers. And so we were in the jam band world during the Solitude days because it really hadn't hit. But then when I'll Be hit,
massive pop song,
and it was on CHR radio right alongside.
Explain what that is.
CHR is pop radio.
Contemporary hits
radio. So it's we're on the same radio stations that Mariah Carey, Celine Dion,
it's the big time.
Boys to Men. I mean, all of the stars.
Yeah.
And I look back at that. We would play these big radio shows where everybody on the bill is just going out there and singing the tracks because there's 30 bands.
Sure.
And they're all famous. And we were like, we will never do that. So these poor production people, we were bringing our Hammond organ out on stage. Like we had 40 inputs and we're making everybody, so we can play live for 3 songs. Like I look back on it now and I'm like, oh, we should have just sang the tracks, like whatever, just get it done. But we were, we had morals about the whole thing. And, it was crazy. But what happens is if you get into the pop world, you're immediately out with the jam band people.
Right.
They're not interested. Like just ask John Popper and Blues Traveler.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, like all this goodwill that we had in the jam band world just kind of went away. And that's just, I'm not sure why that exists or why it is. I'm going to play Christmas Jam, so I've been playing some shows with Warren again. I'm kind of like, am I allowed back? Am I allowed back in the fold? Because I love that world. That world was, I grew up listening to the Allman Brothers every day of my life. That was an incredible moment.
Okay, so I want to play a song that we were talking about. I played it when I was testing the sound out here.
The promise of you, it sleeps in the air that I breathe. and I know that it's true. Don't have to convince myself to believe. What secrets sleep in the heart of a man? And so much love wasted, it slipped back through my hands. You see it in the eyes of the lonely as they make their weary way. Shimmer in my eyes of the longing, and I hear it say, the promise of you, it sleeps in the air that I breathe. And I know that it's true. Don't have to convince myself to believe.
I always love that song. That's on the Messenger record. It came out in '99. Now, why was that not a,
So that was the song.
what's the deal?
So that was the song I wanted for the single, but Atlantic.
Explain about how even if you have a massive hit, that you still have to listen to the record at the time.
So at the time, because we had crossed over, and it wasn't just Lava and the personnel at Lava. Now we were everybody at Atlantic, and Andrea Gannis was the head of radio promotion, and they, and because I'll Be was a hit, Diane Warren, I was on her radar too.
Mm-hmm.
So she makes the call and says, "Hey, I got this song for your artist." And so everybody at Atlantic goes, "A Diane Warren song?" Like, of course, right? Because Diane Warren songs are always successful, or in their mind. And they called and they said, "Hey, Diane Warren has a song for you." And I said, "Who's Diane Warren?" Because I didn't know who she was, not a clue. And they were like, "Well, she's a hit songwriter and she has hits with," and they name 30 artists that she's had hits with. And I go, "Well, I don't care. I don't want to do it. I have this song that I love. And I mean, that's nice, but I don't need it. Like, whatever. What's so funny is this is 28-year-old me." And I was like, "Yeah, thanks, but no thanks." And I'm sure that they weren't expecting that in any way. They were like, "What? This kid just turned down a Diane Warren song?" I was like, "Yeah, I don't want to do that." And so they came back and they said, "Well, what if we pay you to do the Diane Warren song and we put it on a soundtrack?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll do that." Like, you want to, sure. Like, you want to,
Like, what?
Yeah, you want to pay me to sing one of her songs and then you're good. Yeah, sure, whatever. So we cut the song and it went on this, it was a movie called Message in a Bottle, and it went on that soundtrack. And at the time we were still finishing up our song, our album. And a DJ in Salt Lake City put it on the air off of the soundtrack, and it started moving it started making waves. And so they came back and said, "Guess what? This is the single from your new record, and it's going on your record." And at that time too, I had been so busy trying to ingratiate myself, and the last thing in the world I wanted to do is be a pain in their ass. And so I was like, "Yeah, okay, sure, whatever. And dress me however you want to." And now I'm wearing mohair suits and I got some $1,000 haircut. I'm like, whatever. You guys, if you guys are going to throw this kind of money at me, I'll do whatever you want me to do, because I showed up here to play ball. Like, I got a basketball in my hand. Let's play ball. I'm not going to fight you. And that was 100% the wrong thing to do. And I didn't know better, because I just wanted them to care. And I thought by doing that they were going to make sure that was going to blow all the way up. And before I had even gotten my record finished, they had done some market research, and they came back and they said, well, our projections are that your album's only going to sell probably 500,000 records, so we're moving on to somebody else. And so, and it all happened in the course of 4 weeks, 6 weeks. I went from we're taking this thing to the next level to they've moved on to somebody else. And I get it. You know, you've got a label full of 100 artists, and a lot of those artists were selling 4, 5, 6, 7 million records regularly.
Yeah.
And they can't commit all the resources of Atlantic to keep grinding this.
Edwin, why are you taking the record label side
Well,
here?
what I mean is I see where they're coming from,
Sure.
especially because my existence at the label is sort of, they never believed in it, right? They would have to admit that, like, wait a second, you know, I was an afterthought to begin with. So they're like, all right, the afterthought had its moment. Let's move on to the thing. And that's kind of when I knew it was done. Like I was sitting in tree, and of course I didn't say anything to the guys in the band. You don't just bring everybody down, but I basically knew that any shot at that next level had gone away. And we were out playing gigs. And we made one more record with Atlantic. We made one of my favorite records we ever made. It was called Far From Over. But don't ever name an album Far From Over, because it turns out it was exactly over. It was the last record. It was not Far From Over at all. It was in fact, kid, it was over. We were out playing gigs when they, you know, Flom, so nice. I just love him to death. He called me and he's like, Jethro, what are we going to do with you? And I said, we're just going to be friends, but I don't think we're working together anymore. He goes, yeah, you're right. And that was the end of that. And so,
Wow.
but we're friends to this day, right?
Yeah,
So we were still out playing gigs, and I was sort of lost, trying to figure out, like, what am I supposed to do now? And my guitar player, Larry, because it's uncharted territory. Like, what do you do? And so I was just I'm sitting outside of a venue, and Larry and I are sitting in the bus, and I'm like, I'm not really sure what we're supposed to do. And Larry goes, well, we're supposed to do what we always did. You know, every time we go on that stage, we become the ambassadors of possibility for people in the audience. And I can't believe he got to say that. I want to be the one that said that so bad. But Larry goes, you know, we're the ambassadors of possibility for people that live lives that they're unsure of. And we have this incredible gift of being sure of what we're supposed to be doing. And I was like, I just remember in that moment just going, well, there it is. And then I created our little indie world, and I'm so cheap. I drive the bus, and I bought the bus for $50,000 that had burned up in a fire, and we rebuilt it. And we've literally kept our little band and crew together. And it's not sexy. We're not making a lot of money, but everybody's making a living, and we just kept it going.
I love it.
And people came to shows, but I also play in different formats. So I play as a trio. We play as a band for festivals. I can play with symphonies. I can play by myself. I mean, it doesn't. And I put the resources towards furthering the time, because the way I look at it is that in this business, a lot of times you can either be really big or last really long, but not a lot of people get to be really big and last a long time.
Well put.
My point was, well, let's see how long we can do this for.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm at 35 years and I still love it. So all of those things that happened, I think it was right. Like I I wasn't going to last in the major label world because I didn't care about the things they cared about. Like, I didn't care about what I was wearing. I didn't care about them saying I played shows that were too long. I didn't care about a lot of those things.
Well, the irony is that the major label world didn't last very long after that either.
And what's so funny about it now is that the world now sort of celebrates authenticity.
Right.
And when now it's like, well, I get to be exactly how I am and be like, the whole social media thing, I was like, never gonna touch that. That is, I was like one of all these old farts. And then the pandemic hit and we were stuck in the house and my daughter and I started doing stuff online together.
Stuff.
And then what I realized, and I didn't understand this, I did not understand there's a huge difference between the indie world and the general public.
Yeah.
In indie world, like the people that come see us, they know we're playing shows. They know a lot about us. So you have a relationship with them. To the general public, I was in the witness protection program. When we got on social media, people were like, where have you been? Right. I was like, I've been here this whole time. Like, what are you talking about? But it's really interesting because now it's almost like coming out of hibernation, like these last two big tours that we were on with Hootie and Collective Soul, and then last year with Train, we're back in front of the general public, and everybody's like, "Where you been?" Like, look at it. Like, it's so funny. Like, I just assumed like it was all one thing, but it's not. It's different.
We talked a long time ago, and I remember you told me something that I think about a lot, where you're talking about kids and that the internet is their backyard.
Yeah.
And I always thought that was really a profound, because I was talking, it's like, why do the kids not want to go outside and do stuff? Talk about that.
So I remember when my sons got into the whole, playing video games with their headsets on and playing
Discord and everything.
Yeah. And everybody was like, they don't go outside, they don't play sports and do all this stuff. And I was like, well, because they have virtual lives and they're like, no backyard can be as exciting as the Fortnite domain.
Right.
Are you kidding me? You get to like helicopter in on a umbrella and like chase each other around and talk crap. And so it's really where they develop their hierarchies and they're definitely developing some thick skin, because I've heard some exchanges between my sons. It was like, wow, that was creatively really mean. but they are the generation that are starting to cross into that hybrid virtual existence. And it doesn't make any sense to us because we didn't have that. But and like my kids were discovering music on SoundCloud, and they were making me listen to some of this stuff. And I realized, I was like, well, I hate this mumble rap stuff about as bad as my father hated Van Halen.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just carrying on a transition. It's not for me. It's not for me to understand. So for them, like, I always think of it as, until they start to miss out on things in life or feel regretful about how much time they're playing these games, that would be the cutoff. But I know I used to play Xbox with my friends all the time in my early 20s, and I hadn't played Xbox in a billion years. So I think there's a moment where they start to transition. And I would say that my older son, he's already moved away and lives in a different city and works a job, and he doesn't play video games like that anymore.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where they work it all out. Instead of playing tackle football in the backyard, they're in Fortnite. And it's way more about developing friendships and understanding, each other, I guess. I mean, that's my best guess. And I might be putting too good a spin on it, but I mean, didn't Travis Scott had a concert in Fortnite. It was like a crazy event.
Yeah.
And that was kind of where I was like, well, that was a new way of doing it. And all these kids are finding new ways to get their creativity out into the audience that it needs to land on. And it's I stand by it. I mean, I don't, again, but I also don't.
I like your perspective on this. I think it's
not for me. And it's not for me to judge it.
Yeah.
Right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't, but I think back, and this is, I was listening to Black Flag and Husker Du and the Dead Kennedys. And part of what I loved about that wasn't the music. Because have you listened to a Husker Du record lately?
No,
it's impossible, right? Okay. But Bob Mole's amazing. Like
amazing.
Sugar, Bob Mole, but the Husker Du stuff, it's hard on the ears. It's pretty rough. But I think one of the things that we loved about it was that our parents didn't understand it and they hated it. And so there was no chance they were going to try to participate with us. Like, I can't imagine listening to Holiday in Cambodia with my parents, right? So what that music represented was the first lever for us to separate. And it's so terrifying for teenagers to separate from us because it's scary. But if you cloak it in, you know what I mean? Like a little bit of disdain, a little bit of disgust. It doesn't feel as scary or as sad.
It helps them out.
Or as sad. It helps them. And that's like because I've had friends that have had these just knockdown dragouts with their teenagers. And I'm like, buddy, it's not about you. It's how scared, that's how scared he is. It's an inverse of how scared he is. And he's mad at you because of how scared he is to leave you.
Wow.
And that's really important to understand with teenagers is it's never about you. You want it to be about you, but it isn't. And I think that's kind of part of that whole Fortnite universe. We don't understand it. It's a protective bubble for them. They know that we're not going to sit here and go, you should have used the other gun for that attack on the base over there. You know what I'm saying? They don't want that. That's their private time with their friends. And I respect that, But I took my sons, I drove them all the way to Chicago to Soldier Field to see AC/DC.
There you go.
And they grew up listening to Back in Black. So from the time they were little in their car seats, they know every syllable to every song in that record. And I stand by, that's good parenting. But they got to see that band probably do the last shows they're going to do.
Yeah.
And it was 160 decibels where we were sitting. It was insane how loud it was. And I was like, they're never going to hear a concert this loud ever again either. No. It was special. It was a good trip for us to take. But I took my daughter here. Her favorite band or one of her favorite bands is Arctic Monkeys. And so I didn't know anything about this band. And she made me dye my hair blue. And I found out later the reason she did that is so I wouldn't look like the parent that took her and her friends to the concert. But, and I don't go to concerts, right? I mean,
you're out all the time, you're playing, you don't want to go.
It's almost impossible not just sit there and just like watch the rigging guy as he wearing his harness, is like, look at the sound, look at the monitor guy,
Yeah.
And I was listening to this band, and it's real straight. It's real straight. It's not funky at all. It doesn't swing. But man, they were all playing their instruments, and they were all really good at playing their instruments. It's not my favorite band, but I was really impressed. But I mean, I'd never even heard of this band, so it's fun for me to see this next generation. And this next generation, they're probably 30. But to see this continuum, to see the talent it's indestructible. Music played by musicians emotionally is never not going to be a thing. Like, I remember when Marcus King was coming up in Greenville, I spent hours on the phone with him one time talking to him about the things I had already learned. And And every time I see him pop up on my feed, I'm like, there he is, man.
There you go.
It's different when the real thing shows up. Like I tell people all the time, like when you see me playing, I'm at the edge of my ability. Like it's as much as I can possibly do. But then you see like Marcus King, like effortlessly be that's a different level of talent. You know, I mean, it's like you playing guitar. Like I never feel like there's any headroom. Like it's as much as I can possibly do.
That's a good term.
When I'm playing, if I can get all the way through a show without a mistake, it's amazing.
Edwin, can I get you to play a song or two?
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be fun.
Edwin, before we start, tell me about this guitar, which sounds amazing.
This is a Burchett. A guy named Gregory Burchett builds these, and he's a wonderful builder. This guitar, the wood is mahogany that Johnny Cash smuggled out of Jamaica in the 70s, and it was sitting in a barn in Nashville. And John Carter got the wood, and I think they made 3 guitars out of it. And I ended up with one of them. And it's a long story how I ended up with this guitar, but they called and said, do you want one of these? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I love, I don't have a ton of guitars because if I'm not playing a guitar regularly, I usually find a kid that's coming up.
Okay.
And give it to the kids.
Cool.
Because
love that.
You know what I mean? Like, so
yeah.
Like just think like if you're coming up and you can't like you get gifted a really nice instrument, you're on your way, and then surely down the line you'll do that for somebody else, right? So I'm just not much of a collector. So in honor of you acknowledging the promise of you.
The promise of you sleeps in the air that I breathe. And I know that it's true. Don't have to convince myself to believe, to believe. One secret sleeps in the heart of a man. So much love wasted slipped right through my hands. You see it in the eyes of the lonely as they make the weary way. The shimmer in my eyes of the longing, and I hear it say, the promise of you sleeps in the air that I breathe. And I know that is true. Don't have to convince myself to believe, to believe. One secret sleeps in the heart of the night. Maria, my dreams of salvation slipping out of sight. In the shimmering moments of the twilight, the closing of the shine, a whisper on the wind of a rescue, a savior in time. The promise of you sleeps in the air that I breathe. And I know that is true. Don't have to convince myself to believe. And all this time, and I've been fighting my own private wars. And all this time, you're the peace and I search for. The promise of you sleeps in the air that I breathe. And I know that is true. Don't have to convince myself.
Yeah, there it is.
Beautiful. Wow.
That was one of those, wrote it in the studio. We needed another song. And sometimes they float in. They float in from the ether.
So Edwin, I'm going to ask you this. I just came back from Europe, and I do these live shows, and I take questions from people, and the question that they always ask me is to predict the future of music. And you've been doing this a long time, Edwin. You understand social media, and where's the music business going? Is it going the AI route? Is it going to be more people playing live music? What do you see in the next 10 years?
I think we're going to see a rise of the love affair with AI music. But one of the things that I've noticed about it, because I've played around with it just like you have, and I've been really impressed with how the things that, like, I've put leftover lyrics of mine into Suno and it comes out and you go, wow, that's pretty good, you know? And I think people are going to take some of their melodic cues from AI, but I think it's such an amalgam of great voices. Like when you hear the soul voice from Suno, it's like this amalgam of Lenny Williams and Marvin Gaye and Curtis Mayfield, and you hear it's trying to scrub the best parts of those.
Yeah.
But what it doesn't get is the wabi sabi, right? What it doesn't get is that inflection or that 1/16th cent off note, or when you can tell that somebody's trying too hard because they care. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think that people intrinsically know the difference, and the true music fans are going to want to hear music played by people from the perspective of the person. And the reason why I love music, and especially songwriters, like I love hearing music come through the lens of someone else's life. Like they've spent their life looking through this lens, and this is what they've gathered, and this is what they want to share with you. And that's, to me, that's my favorite thing about music. And the AI is like, hey, here's what we think you're gonna like out of 10,000 songs. You know what I mean? So I think it's interesting, but I don't think it's ever gonna replace a songwriter saying, this is what happened in my life, this is how I internalized it, and this is what I'm giving to you in this moment. And it's emotional and it's honest, and we're sitting here together sharing this moment. I'm still the ambassador of possibility. You know, I don't think AI can do it. I mean, we'll see. I mean, I may be whistling in the dark again, but I'm always going to go see songwriters. And that was one of the frustrations. Like, I'd go to Nashville and do these songwriter rounds, and the songwriters are playing these unbelievable songs that are intensely personal. I'm like, why are you handing this to somebody else?
Right.
Why aren't you out there playing? Like, I would come see you all day long. Like, I don't need a costume. And, you know, so I know, and I know that's not realistic. I get it. But it used to always frustrate me, these legions of insanely talented people that are just there to hand over their songs because either they don't have the look or they don't have the backing or whatever it is. I mean, I don't know. I'm probably naive when it comes to that, but I'd much rather hear the person that experienced it than someone else's interpretation.
Well, I hope that you're right about this, Edwin. I really like your perspective on the world, and I appreciate you coming in and hanging today.
I am such a huge fan of what you do because I think music would be less understood without what you're doing. I mean, I know, when Brian May, when I met him and we spent a good part of our conversation talking about how awesome you are. I was like, dude, it's amazing. You have to sit back sometimes and be really floored at where this has led you, right?
Well,
I mean, I just wish I could talk you into making a record with me. If I have a regret, is that we didn't make a record together.
We
back
never
in the
say
day.
never, Edwin.
You heard it here, folks. So I'm gonna start calling you every week, just like I did those program directors.
Dude, I really appreciate you coming down, and it's great seeing you as usual, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm always at your service.
Awesome.